Suave afternoon, Suave afternoon. This is Brother Suave, your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, and creator. Hope you guys having a Suaveless day.
Yeah, and with that, let's commence to pay.
Okay, I'm so Suaveless, you so Suaveless.
Together we can fix the trauma that's befallen us.
Divine social interactions remains marvelous.
Mind-blowing, Suavelicious talk, higher consciousness. But think, let not your hearts be troubled, Dr. Brother Suave.
Divine light getting dull.
Greetings, this is Dr. Brother Suave, your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, and creator, and your divine social therapist and host of Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave. How you doing, everyone? Just being grateful, thanking God for allowing me to see another day I have never, ever seen before. I thank God for allowing me another day just to get it right. You know, I've made many mistakes throughout my life, and I just thank God for the privilege and honor to see another day and say, hey, listen, I love you. I'm sorry. Make amends. Improve the relationship, not just with others, but with yourself, you know, and constantly appreciating his grace. I thank God for another day. So today, man, I just had a very, very long day, but my days are normally long anyway. Got up, been up, it's like, 4:30, 5 o'clock, wrote some progress notes, and was tired from last night, yesterday, like I was tired today. And so I had, you know, I will always want to push myself. Anybody know me, I'm not going to be staying at the same level and being complacent every year. I'm always trying to accomplish something, either it's some more credentials, books, or just growing as a person. And I'm always about my personal growth and development. And so I was, you know, I never had to perform 100% to accomplish some amazing things in my life. And I thank God for his blessings. But I wanted to see what was more. And so what I did was, you know how they say, like a mentor has a mentor, everyone has a mentor. Well, coaches can always use a coach. So I hired this coach, and this brother is incredible. His name is Dave from the Your Day organization he has, man. I'm telling you. So it's more than just the physical, because it shows you how to connect with the physical and the mental. And so when you having a hard time doing a particular exercise, but your determination helps you push it. So that's not just your strength, but it's your energy and your determination. And so, man, it was draining, but it really empowered me mentally. And I'm happy for that. And so that was from 7 o'clock in the morning to 10. And so taking that into consideration, that was something, because I was already up doing notes. Then I had to drive way on the other side of town. And so that was something, but it was amazing. But immediately after that, I had a Zoom meeting with my organization. And we had a great agenda, but unfortunately we had some technical difficulties. But at the end of the day, it worked out. And right after there, man, I had to go on the other side of town. Atlanta's a big place, to tell you. It's a huge place. But I went all the way and got my teeth cleaned. And then I got that done, and I had to get me something. I went shopping, done a few things, man, because I just needed to get some things, you know, with this new house I just purchased. And so then I got me some sushi. I just had to have some sushi. Got home, took me a power nap, and here I am. Had to get ready for the show. And again, here I am. Again, you know, these days are long, but it's always worth it. So when you're putting in work, just realize you're not doing it just to do it. You're doing it because you have an agenda. You want to learn to push yourself. And that's one of the things I did today, as well as just trying to push myself with hiring a little transformational coach. So here I am. And so tonight, we're going to be having a powerful subject. We're going to be talking about, so make sure you like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And please, if you find something that's interesting, please Cash App. That's Cash App Suave Walker. You know, show some love and appreciation if you feel you got something out of tonight's broadcast. And also be sure to vote this coming Tuesday, November 8th, because if you don't vote, you don't have nothing to say. It's just as simple as that. You know, everybody have their opinion about politics. Everybody have their opinion about religion, have their own opinion. But again, at the end of the day, if you don't vote, you don't have anything to say. So I want to get into the meat and potatoes of tonight with Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave. We're going to be talking about love and respect, the respect he desperately needs. Yes, I'm excited about talking about this particular subject matter because a lot of times, you know, in relationships, because that's just always been a topic that I enjoy talking about. Many of my relationships, failed marriages. I just love talking about relationships because what I realize is people look at like a presenting problem, but they're not understanding that goes way back sometimes in childhood. So here it is, we're talking about love and respect, and it's the respect he desperately needs. So a lot of times people are not understanding how important respect is to a man. And so what happens is it comes conflict between men and women about the respect factor. And a lot of times, man, if he doesn't feel respected, because I say desperately needs, he has to have it, he desires it, and he wants it. So when he doesn't get the respect he needs, it's so hard for him to give love, you know. And this is one of the things I think is a disconnect. And also, so it's very difficult for him to give the love that you need as ladies. You need, you have, and you desire to be loved. And this has sometimes become a major problem in these dynamics of relationships. Okay, so and what I'm gonna tell you is a lot of times people are in denial about them loving themselves and respecting themselves, because guess what? The way, because everybody says they love themselves and everybody says they respect themselves. But let me tell you something. When you're in these toxic relationships and where you allow people to treat you, it's not reflective of love. It's reflective of denial. Yes, I said it, denial. How you doing? How you doing, Chris? It says understand on respect towards a man. How can it goes both ways? And again, one of the things about again, as I was saying, both of men need respect and women need respect. But one of the things when we look at priorities, most important things for women is to be loved, and the most important things to be respected by a man. You know, our love language is a little different from your love language. You know, in terms of moving forward. Like for example, you can tell me as a man you love me all you want to. Well, guess what? I have to be respected. That's my love language. And any human being, male or female, wants the respect. You understand? But, and again, it has to go both ways because male or female don't want to be disrespected. And I thank you for the question, but do understand some of the things that's the most important. So let's say you're in a relationship and you say, like I have a big head, say, Dad, you got a big head. And I say, hey, first of all, don't disrespect me. And you say, I didn't disrespect you. See, that becomes a problem, and that shows a lack of respect, because instead of sitting there saying you didn't disrespect, you need to say, hey, well, okay, I'm sorry. What did I do to make you feel disrespected? And then allow him to communicate that to you. And he would say, well, first of all, I have a big head, so it's insecurity to me. It makes me feel uncomfortable. I've been called big head all my life. And then as they explain to you about their feelings about feeling disrespected, then at that point, you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize it. I was just kidding. But I won't call you big head anymore. So those are things we have to be mindful. You can't sit there and say you did not disrespect people. That's why I always tell people when they say, I didn't mean to. And I always say, anybody knows me, I say, what's the difference between homicide and manslaughter? What is the difference between homicide and manslaughter? And the question is this. You have a manslaughter is accidental death. You know, causing an accident and resulting in someone's dying. Homicide is intentional. But guess what? It still results in death. So either family lost their loved one through homicide or through manslaughter. They still experiencing the same pain. So we have to always be mindful, constantly saying, I didn't mean to. Just be mindful of what you say and how you speak. This is why a lot of times I always tell people, slow down. You slow down, you make less mistakes. But we always so anxious to talk fast. Thank you, Frederick Jones. Thank you, Brother Wally. Um, so this is what we're going to be talking about, love and respect. So when you learn to respect yourself, you learn to love yourself, you learn to improve these dynamics. It's so important. So my intentions were not to disrespect you. So we have Sarah Bellamy. So what do you mean by that? Your intentions were not to disrespect you? Because again, as I say, it may not be your intentions, but I still feel disrespected. Like I said, the person who committed the manslaughter, they didn't mean to kill them, but they killed them nevertheless. So the person is still experiencing the pain. It could be from death or emotions that may trigger some trauma as when they was called that as a child. And that's why I say it's we have to always be mindful when we say things because it can be taken a wrong way. And sometimes when you didn't mean to do it, the person is still dead, and that's why it's called manslaughter. Okay. And so I just wanted to start off by that. And so here's another part about this thing about love and respect. 'Cause a lot of times people just fight and fight and fight and don't even understand they disrespecting the dynamic of the relationship. Because now we have to learn how to have better communication skills. We have to have ability to be more patient, understanding, and empathetic towards the people. Because sometimes people react based on, you ever heard the term hurt people? And sometimes they've been hurt and they never address those issues of hurt. And then they just lash out and they really don't mean to disrespect you. And this is why communication is important. Telling the person what you experienced in life, what you went through, and sharing that. And it's hard sometimes to be transparent because a lot of times people abuse people when they're transparent. And when I say abuse them, not physically, but emotionally by taking advantage of the information you have. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Acknowledging that you offended a person. Exactly. And so this is what I'm saying. So when you offend someone and they tell you, acknowledge that and try to do it with a sincere way of expression, not a way just looking like you're just saying you're sorry, like a children. I'm sorry. You need to be intentional when you do something. Thank you for that. And it's always important to be intentional. So we have a question about on the crystal. It says, how do you deal with a partner that may not have good communication skills? And how can you keep things from being one-sided? Unfortunately, the way life is, it's important to have balance, but sometimes, like we say, everybody's not always created equally because some people may be good as let's just like, for example, in my book, The 10 Commandments of Intimacy, you may have a person who's extremely good with finances, but the other person is good with cooking. And so we have to be mindful. Certain things are not going to be good. And this is why it's important to sometimes seek professional help. And I think one of the disservices that people think, therapy is something that is something like really weird and it's intimidating and it's very taboo. But do understand it's education, and they help you learn how to communicate and how to find out and pull through the layers of some of the things that sometimes people have dealt with trauma and help you be more empathetic. But it's also someone who's helping you identify with what things that bother you and help you with communication. You get that through coaching. And also it's information out there, plenty of it. You can always learn. And so communicating, because everybody doesn't have the same skill set, but you have to talk, you have to communicate, you have to. So what I'm going to do right now, we at that quarter time. So we're going to go into commercial breaks and we'll be right back.
Tune in and stream live now. Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, the podcast, is now being broadcast on NPN Voice. NPN Voice can be found on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, and now on Audible and Amazon Music, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, the podcast, now on NPN Voice. NPN Voice. Got voice. You heard?
Okay, and we're back on Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, talking about love and respect. So, Crystal was talking about, I guess being on the same page and talking about when one person doesn't have those particular skills and communication, and you do have to again work towards it, and communicating, telling someone. And I know sometimes it's a struggle. This is why it's so important to have people, mentors, coaches, therapists, and transformational coaches to help you improve those relationships. But again, putting forth, because the relationship is work, and it's not going to happen overnight. But if you're determined, you love the person, you care about them, and you're really committed, then this is just the work you have to put in. Nothing changes overnight. We don't change overnight, and we just got to be serious about it. If we serious about it, we serious about it. Put the work in, Crystal. Things are going to be challenging in life. Hey, we all been there. As we grow and mature, we have a better understanding. But we have to also have a positive mindset about everything that we're dealing with in life. Because I'm going to tell you, it's just like you waking up saying you're going to have a bad day. Well, you keep saying it, thinking you will have a bad day. And same thing with the relationships. You want things to move forward, then hey, you only have control of what you can do. And that's one thing about the serenity prayer. You have to understand certain things you can change, and the things you can change, you do everything in your power to make those changes. But also you got to understand there's certain things you cannot change in people and in circumstances. So what you do is you accept those, and you always asking God to help you learn the difference between the two. That's so important, to know the difference between the two. So again, make sure continue with the comments, continue with the suggestions, and I love that dialogue. I love those chats. And again, make sure you subscribe, like, and share. And so one of the things about relationships, sometimes, again, I notice that when people are in relationships, someone makes a mistake and the person goes to apologize. One person apologized after they decide to show some humility. And then the one who was offended decides to I don't want to hear this. And then they become the one who end up being passive aggressive and don't want to talk. And then next thing you know, when they realize that maybe that was a bad way of responding, and then they go to apologize to the other one, then the other one acts up. And sometimes it's like a circle of causality. The more they do this, the more they do that, the more they do that, the more they do this. And sometimes we have to break those circle of causality. We have to break that and be mindful. You want to get on the course of peace. You understand? So therefore, you can get back to the place where you are as a loving, nurturing, caring person, and they can get back to a loving and nurturing, caring person. Because at the end of the day, you guys love each other. That's why you're in a relationship. That's why you spend time with each other. Okay, so it says both individuals must be emotionally mature. Again, it's just like communication. A person has to get there when they develop, because it's just like, again, you may be able to cook, and the person, well, you need to learn how to cook, and then the person, well, you need to be mature. It's just sometimes people develop. And again, when you guys show empathy and transparency, so the person said, well, I never really had somebody to teach me about emotional intelligence. I never was. I was a spoiled kid. No one ever gave me directions, and this is why when I talked about Ten Commandments of intimacy, I talked about balance because I think we have a lot of unrealistic expectations to say you must be this and you must be that, and not understanding it's a developmental process. The same way you may be developmental delayed in learning how to cook, clean, or the same way he may be developmentally delayed in learning how to be what we say a man. Because same thing, I don't think men or women learn how to become men or women through osmosis. It's someone who has to teach them. We all born males, we all born females, and many of us are grown boys, many of us are adult males, and you earn your stripes to become that man. But again, you don't just become emotionally mature. You don't just become financially secure. You don't just become that person. It's a process. A lot of times you have to be mindful. It says, can you love a person that you don't respect? Really? Well, again, it's a matter of perspective because, again, watch this. You can have a relative who you know is a thief, robber, killer, even pedophile. You love them, but you definitely don't respect them and what they do. That's why you have family members. You're like, I love them, that's my family, but they can't come over my house because now I know they're gonna do something. Or just like a person who's on drugs and have some form of addiction. You can't tell them they don't love their parents, but they're trying to work through their struggles, and so they may steal from them. So it's a matter of perspective and having an understanding what love is. A lot of times people sit there and say, but you really gotta, thank you, Fred. You gotta really dig deep into it because again, it's just like God. He's sitting there. You think he loves us all, but he hates our sin. So you could be in a relationship and like, yo, I love you, but I hate the way you talk to me. I hate that you act this way. We have another comment. It says, should a person feel bad for having certain expectations? I keep it on. Don't take it off because I want to answer one thing at a time. See, that's one thing about, I'm glad that question is that first part. It says, see, we always say no expectations, no disappointment. But let me tell you something. When you're in a relationship, trust, you have expectations. You have expectations for these people to reciprocate love. You have expectations for them not to cheat on you. You have expectations for them not to abuse you. You have expectations to do right about you. But it don't always happen. But you want to have expectations. This is why we get into relationships. This is why we share. This is why we get married. This is why we trust. But I understand, so a person can feel bad. It says also here, how some people say a person's expectations may be too high, but what if you feel your partner is lacking what you need? And this is when an executive decision comes in. For example, again, 10 Commandments of intimacy. I see it all the time. Let's say you see a person they treat you nice, but they trying. And for some reason, they can't get it right. Like we call them can't get right. And you just expecting them to get it right. It's a matter of your tolerance. And one thing about this thing, these are sometimes where people have codependency issues and they have these unreasonable expectations because I always say, don't let a person just tell you anything. You can't touch it, see it, or feel it. It's not real. So you have to be mindful of the expectations and limitations that people have. They may have financial limitations, emotional limitations, developmental limitations, comprehension limitations. And so it's up to you. As there's always say that beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. But do understand, it's a theory I wrote in the 10 Commandments of Intimacy. It's called the RRJ process. And the RRJ process is the romanticize, rationalize, and justify. And sometimes you can see a person who just can't get it right. They have comprehension, they have developmental delays. You can go back. Yeah, we all adults, so nobody knows if you're in special ed class or not. No disrespect to any people who have developmental delays. But sometimes those short yellow bus people or the people who are struggling academically, emotionally, psychologically, or psychiatrically, they got limitations. So do understand. And then when you become adult, sometimes they find a way over the years playing it off or masking it. But trust, you have to sometimes come to an executive decision and seeing if you have the ability to deal with that. And also you really evaluate and see if you have codependency issues, you know, because a lot of times, especially with codependency, many people look at the beneficiary as a person who's always in need, but people don't realize the benefactor is codependent as well because they always need somebody to need them, you know. So we have to always be mindful, you know, because sometimes people just don't have it. Some things are hard pills to swallow, but sometimes people lack the things you need. And sometimes you need mental stimulation. Sometimes you need intellectual stimulation. Sometimes you need spiritual stimulation. So it may be, yeah, you may be going to Pound Town. You may be going something, you know, knocking your boots and making you feel good. But some of those things wear out. And so therefore, that's why some people say, I need intellectual stimulation. Because sometimes that's just what you need, you know. But everybody has their own needs, their own desires, and their own wants, you know. Thank you so much for that question. And so here, so again, as she said, oh, great, it's coming. I love this. It says, Ms. Bellamy, it says, seems as if most relationships are transactional. Yeah, you know, okay. I'm glad you say that because they are. Because guess what? You or me wouldn't exist because my dad needed my mom eggs and my mom needed my dad's sperm. So guess what? Yes, we need each other. We don't exist without each other. So I got to give something and you got to give something. You understand? And that's just how life is, you know, and people forget that, you know, it's teamwork. And that's one of the things we talk about when a lot of people are dependent and then they try to get independent and then they got to learn interdependence. And these are things where we have to learn to work together. It says, Mr. Jones, he says, we shouldn't settle. That always leads to disappointments. Again, settling. That's one of the things that a lot of people do because a lot of times people have codependency issues. Sometimes people are like they're like thirsty and they haven't got the attention. And sometimes they go through the RRJ process, but sometimes they just haven't had companionship. And I think it's something, the Bible says soul craves affection. So it's only natural for someone who wants to be loved. You understand? And sometimes when they haven't had that affection, it can sometimes make you appear to be desperate. And it's just like, you know, Eddie Murphy was saying, that person went crazy off their Ritz cracker and it was just a Ritz cracker. But you got to understand how some people just, they want to be loved. They want to be held. They want to be someone to be affectionate towards them. And sometimes people go years of, we have seen talk shows on social media, even in real life, people say, when the last time they had sex or when the last time they been in a relationship? It could be years for some people. Some people haven't been touched by a man or woman in 20, 30 years. It's 3 decades, man. So this is why we sometimes have to be empathetic. And some of the people don't have that. And some people haven't. Some people have finances. Some people have power, influence. Some people have looks. You know, it depends on your circumstances, you know, so we have to be mindful. Let's say a person who has some physical disabilities or in a wheelchair, they still deserve to be loved. What about a person who's missing an arm or a leg, have some deformities? They still have the same emotions that all of us have. They want to be loved. They want to be respected. They want to have loving, nurturing relationships. So sometimes your strong desire to have someone in your life may appear to be like they're desperate. But again, we have to always try to be empathetic and understanding to what people are going through at times. And a lot of times we don't have that empathy until we have those personal experiences. You know, just like when we look at when a person has a loss in the family, when someone get killed, nobody's interested. But then when their child is hurt or killed in a crime, then we'll say, oh, they went too far now. And sometimes people lack empathy until it happens to them. Thank you a lot for that statement, Fred. Keep them coming. So we sometimes just got to be mindful. And again, when we talking about love and respect, you know, everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be respected. And we have to always be reminded each and every day. And this is where empathy comes in. Because sometimes it's just like, example, you have the baddie and you have the studs in terms of not the new word studs, but the studs as the guys who was just getting all the honeys and everything. Well, guess what? We all get old. We all develop. We lose some on this end, but we gain something on this end. We gain wisdom. We gain experiences. We have our youth and that time. So as we get older, we have different perspectives. That's why I always say the one thing I'm adamant about is not being adamant about anything, because guess what? You learn your philosophies, your perspectives change. And that's why I always tell people, don't be so adamant about it, because today is the present, tomorrow's the future. And when the future becomes the present, today will be the past. And then you can reflect back on realizing how much you didn't know. And that's why when I always hear people say, I love myself, so me, I need to know where they come from. Is it something they're just saying, or something they learn to develop and appreciate? And that's learning the mantra of self-love, because I see so many people in denial. And that's one of the things about denial. It's a terrible disease, because one thing about the disease of denial, you don't realize you have it. And so as a thing, I wrote some little notes for myself when it comes to love and infatuation. I wrote a little notes. I just got to find it. So there is this dictionary. It's called the New International Webster Dictionary. And so there's the words when it comes to love. So what love means is a strong attraction brought about by affection or desire, and an object of affection and desire, sexual intercourse. Now, did you hear what I just said? Sexual intercourse. And it's coming from the New International Dictionary. So it's no wonder why our children, our youth, get this mixed up, And so when you talk about it, it's just two different ways. So they end up being on two different pages. That's why we're thinking love is sexual intercourse. Okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to come back to this. Stella Crystal, it says, is it possible to have mutual love and respect for someone you're not spiritually connected with? In other words, how important is spirituality? Very important. However, I don't think it's a be all end all, because a lot of times, again, when people become religious, they say they're spiritual. Now people are saying they're not spiritual. I mean, they're not religious, just spiritual. But at the end of the day, it's about a connection. Because one thing about it, sometimes when you have a different spiritual philosophy, especially when you bring in children, you may have, based on your spiritual philosophy and your perspective and seeing things, you may bump heads. Because everyone knows in every relationship, it's so giddy. We so happy. You got patience. A person can do something all messed up. You're like, nah, I'm good. Time passed by, God darn, how long you gonna do this? And so as you get used to people, there are certain things you become a little more honest about. And that's honest about how you really felt about them in terms of their spiritual philosophy, having different lifestyles. And then that's when you start really being honest. And so it's important to be very honest from the first, because you don't want to invest all that time. And next thing you know, you done fell in love with someone and now you're basically addicted to them, so to speak. And so you have to always be mindful of falling in love with someone that you may not be necessarily on the same page in terms of their spiritual philosophy. And Ms. Bellamy, and also I would like that question to be brought up back on the screen after I answer this one, because it was something else I wanted to say on it. It said, I don't have the patience to teach a grown man, not male, basic skills like, well, see, again, I'm glad you said that. You wouldn't have to do that if he's a man. You don't have the patience. See, you could have left that man out, because you don't have to be teaching these men. Now, if you're talking about basic stuff, or not basic stuff, things that are the intangibles or something that a person haven't been exposed to, hey, and again, this is what I keep telling you, empathy, because the same way you may not, to open, say, I don't have patience to teach this particular person who you're involved with, not saying you are, but just, I know it's hypothetical, but it may come around where they may feel the same way about you. And this is when we are not mindful that we are flawed. And that's why I keep saying empathy, understanding, patience, because all of us fall short. All of us have something in us that we're not necessarily good in, not necessarily skilled in, not necessarily exposed to. And then when you're not, and then when they lack the empathy and lack the compassion, you're like, hey, because again, this is why we have to also try to be understanding, because everybody's going to get their opportunity. Everybody's going to get their opportunity to get the business. Trust. So that's why I tell people, because anybody know me, I'll go in. But all I say is, don't expect grace if you don't have humility. Okay, it says it's possible to have mutual love and respect for someone, and you're not spiritually connected to. Again, these are friendships. Friendships. So he says it's possible to have mutual love. I love you and I respect you. We're not sometimes you don't have the spiritual connection, or you have a different spiritual philosophy. But spirituality, if you learn basic principles, it's just love, respect, and because that's something, you respect people, humanity, give them respect. And again, you love them, you respect them, because that part of you, that spiritual part of you, is going to be a person who cares about mankind. And that's all. Those things important. I don't know if you're talking about relationship wise or what, but you just, again, you have to work on it. It said, Mr. Jones says, I believe you can have many kinds of love and relationships, but it's really important to be equally yoked. Yes, again, as I said earlier about the spiritual philosophy, yeah, it's important. That's why I talked about the 10 Commandments of intimacy being equally yoked. It's like, how can night and day be partners? How night and day be right? And so again, yeah, you can have a person in this particular religious philosophy dating this religious philosophy because they may be attracted to each other physically. They could be attracted to mentally, intellectually, developmentally, economically. All those things will be in point. But again, when it comes down to little things like naming children or how you do things, you're gonna bump heads, trust. And then all the time you spent rationalizing. Again, I'm not gonna argue exception, because there's too many studies out there and too many people who have beat the odds. But unfortunately, that's called exception. And I'm not gonna argue exceptions. And so you got to look at the possibilities and probabilities, because even with people with the same religious philosophies, the same ethnic or religious or spiritual background, relationships are hard. And so you having those things that can be a problem. And so the crystal says, it seems so hard to gain respect for a person once you lose it. Absolutely. Even if it says, is this even possible? Listen, let me tell you something. I'm glad you asked that question, because let me tell you something. You can forgive somebody, when they mess up, they screw up. You can forgive them. It may be hard, but sometimes, man, when you lose respect, it's like, yo, that's gonna always be in your back of your mind. So again, that RRJ can be real serious. That romanticize, rationalize, and justify thing, that theory and philosophy that I created. Trust. When you lose respect, it's almost a done deal, because it's going to always be question them. You're going to always question them. You're going to always second guess them. You're going to always contradict them. You're going to always have something in the back of your mind. Did they do this right? I don't trust them. So sometimes, and this is why sometimes you just got to make your executive decision. It's very difficult. And so, and your last part of that was, is it even possible? Let me tell you something. There's a lot of toxic codependent, dysfunctional relationships out there when there's been a lot of butt kicking, cheating, abusing, toxic, whole bunch of stuff, and they stay together. Because I'm gonna tell you, misery loves company, toxic loves toxic. So trust. So when you say it's possible, millions prove it is. Because people sometimes say a half a man, a half a woman is not better than none, and that's unfortunate. But a lot of people stay in a relationship. Some of the most long term and what we say successful based on the length of time that these people are with each other. Those are some of the most toxic relationships, and they always say we stay together because we love each other. It's as I said on my podcast on Sunday, some receipts there are no refunds for it. Oh man, I like that because it is some receipts there are no refunds. He is hitting a point. That's my mentor, Brother Wally. He's been on my show several times. We talk on the rest of the day. You can make sure you join him. Wally keeps it real, keeps you thinking, and because he definitely keeps you thinking. He keeps me thinking. He gives me support. I'll be seeing you tomorrow, Brother Wally. You're supposed to come through. Got your rake. Hey, by the way, Brother Wally, that rake is amazing. I mean, I've never seen a rake like that before, fellas. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my mentor. Like I said, he let me hold his rake because as you know, here in Atlanta, oh my God, the leaves are falling, and I have 8,641 billion leaves in my yard. Okay, so again, man, I love this interaction, getting shared, so we can have more people engaged because you guys are giving some excellent questions. I love this dialogue. I really, 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 really do. We didn't have a guest tonight, unfortunately, but I'm enjoying it. So, again, Brother Wally Wisdom Podcast, no problem. WKYT. Well, Wally keeps you thinking. Join them. So, again, we have to understand respect. A man loves him. That's his love language. And I have been guilty to say, listen, you could say you love me all you want to. The most important thing to me is give me my respect. You understand? I give you your love. And I'm going to tell you, for me, you give me my love, you give me my respect, you're going to get some love. You understand? And this is, understand, they always say, well, why he's not doing it? Because let me tell you, when a man feels respected, oh my God, there's nothing he won't do for you. And you got to really realize that. So it's when he loves, it's just like, here's a controversial thing that I would say. A lot of times people say, guys go out there and take care of other people's babies or other people's children, but they won't take care of theirs. And it's controversial. And I will often say, well, if a man doesn't love something, it's hard for him to give. It's hard for him to sacrifice or make sacrifices. So when he loves you, he makes sacrifices. So imagine putting that in the context of a relationship. When a man is feeling respected, he's going to make sacrifices. He's going to make sacrifices financially. He's going to go above and beyond to take care of you, protect you, and provide for you. But when he doesn't feel that, he's not willing to make the sacrifices. He's not willing to go above and beyond. And so one of the questions earlier is about being these reciprocal relationships. They have to be reciprocal because so when you give in the love, he's going to give respect. And he's going to go above and beyond. Aretha Franklin said it best, respect. And those things, let me just tell you, a man will go above and beyond. A man is not going to wife you up or propose if he don't love you. You understand? And it won't go any farther if you get comfortable and thinking I done got him a ring and we're going to move forward. Now, when you start getting comfortable and start losing respect and start getting disrespectful, so to speak, it back out. So, question for the viewers. It says, how do you give people respect where respect is usually earned? Ah, that's one of those regurgitated social perspectives that you got to earn respect. You earn respect by being in the present unless you do something foul. You can lose respect for them, you can lose the respect they have, but you don't always have to earn respect. And I think sometimes that goes into, um, in terms of organizations or competitive sports. People earn their respect because of something they did or make the fellows own their respect. But generally, when it comes to things outside of organizations and sports, you just give a person the respect until they give you something that otherwise, or should I say, they lose on your respect. But we don't have any right, because you remember the opposite of respect is disrespect. So that's just like saying you have the right to disrespect people when they haven't done anything worthy of being disrespected. So we have to be mindful and just give everybody a respect until they do something to warrant that. Thank you for that. LaCrystal says, I think you earn respect by giving it. Again, so again, it says, if not, it says, if it's not reciprocated, then there's the issue. Okay, again, when I said about respect, so a person's on a sidewalk, they don't know you. So you telling me they have to earn respect for you to walk across them? No, they don't. And I know you're saying you have to give it and earn it, but sometimes people don't earn it because you just have to just give respect because they didn't do anything to be disrespected. So again, if somebody's walking over you, you show them respect by saying, excuse me. They don't have to earn it. You just have to be respectful in it. And so this is what I'm saying, you go by people, they didn't do anything. You come in their house, good evening, how you doing? You walking across them, excuse me. It says, all right, some women make the executive decision to decline marriage as well. I definitely believe that. I definitely believe that. But again, I also look at things from and I do stereotype. I do understand quantitative methods. Anything over 50% becomes a norm, and sometimes people are afraid to move forward in relationships because of constantly having failed relationships, fear of being rejected, or feel the failure again. So a lot of times people saying it, but I don't believe is always true. I think they just find some way to develop coping skills. But again, I don't argue exception because we know a lot of women just choose not to. But trust, I think they have like I did a show called Unequally Yoked and the relationship resume. If you go back and look at their relationship resume, this is all they thought about: marriage, relationship, and children. And sometimes a lot of failed relationships or whatever, people get bitter. They get angry. They fear. And so in their heart, they just rather play it safe, and so they elect not to. In addition to, sometimes, again, people are comfortable where they at. And sometimes, believe it or not, relationships can really, for some people, create problems. So Brother Wally said, really, how so? It said, I gave our sisters their love. My point was for men and women to own up and be that. Too many men aren't stepping up, and sisters sometimes pick the low-hanging fruit. Yes, that's. I think a lot of times that is, but also be mindful. And again, I don't use the term men loosely because all of us are males. But again, I think the low-hanging fruit can be on both genders, I believe. But again, I think sometimes, in fact, bring that up again, please, Brother Wally's comment. Okay, so his point was, but I don't remember what point he made earlier. Maybe I don't remember it. But too many men aren't stepping up. Again, that comment. A lot of us, again, I do some stereotyping, but the average man, is raised by a woman, and we're not saying that women can't show us how to develop, but a lot of times we are not men, and so we're not learning to be responsible. It's a lot of enabling, a lot of coddling and those things. So how do you expect a man or a male or a grown boy to know how to step up and be responsible if he haven't had no one to show him? So he's supposed to learn through osmosis? No, he has to have somebody there to show him. So a lot of times when you sitting there as a male and all you do is don't have a responsibility, not you don't have to throw out garbage, you don't have to work, you don't have to do anything. So a lot of us as males, we go from mama house to a female house to maybe a grandma house, back to another female house, back to our house, and there is a vicious cycle. And nobody's responsive, nobody's telling you. And so we sit there, well, it's easy to say he should step up, but this is his norm, you know? So again, and this is the thing where we have these unreasonable expectations that the male is supposed to be a man, and how he's supposed to learn. Through osmosis, he's not. He has to be taught it. And that's, I'm going to always support and defend men, the male species, because a lot of us, too many us are brought in situations that we have no control over, and we don't have these models and these examples. And again, we sitting there saying why we don't know, how. Some of us go through the school of hard knocks and develop and have some mentors. And some people just get it on their own, and something about them, they end up being men. They didn't pay their dues. They didn't went through HE hockey stick, and they are becoming some of the greatest men because they have this determination. Say, I don't want to be. I don't ever want my kids to be without a father, just like I was without a father. So they work hard and they hold themselves accountable. They move, but these are exceptions. This is not the norm. So this is why we can't. If other races or other groups could be empathetic towards their struggle and their situation, we can do the same. Okay, so always be mindful. It's just like when we see children out there saying, "Oh, they sag and they acting this way." Well, the parents have an obligation to teach them. How are they going to learn how to not sag or do things if no parent taught them? So we have to be mindful. If you're not taught, you don't know. Same thing and everything. Even the social media, people are learning through YouTube, Google. It's some form of teaching because they have an interest and they're learning. But we have to be mindful that people don't know anything by just popping up in the head. And some people do. Again, I don't argue with exceptions. I just know this is something that's been plaguing our communities and our families for years. So if others can be empathetic to their plight, we have to start being empathetic to ours. So again, I love tonight. It was pretty smooth, but guess what? I couldn't have done it without you guys. I'm just not the person who can just talk for an hour to myself or to people when I need interaction. And again, that's just what I'm talking about. The dependence, the independence, and the interdependence. So I'm a person who's like interdependence. I love engaging. That's why I talk about on the balance of intimacy in terms of 10 Commandments of intimacy. The book that tonight's subject matter was this book. It's called Love and Respect by Dr. Emerson Edgerix. It's a very good book. It helps you understand about the dynamics of love and respect and how important love is to a man and how important love is to a woman and how to get to that place of understanding of each other. So this has been a great episode for me, in my opinion. Thank you guys for showing up. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate that, brother Wally. And just remember, great minds reach great places. I love you. I mean it. Bye-bye.
Tune in and stream live now. Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, the podcast, is now being broadcast on NPN Voice. NPN Voice can be found on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, and now on Audible and Amazon Music, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, the podcast, now on NPN Voice. NPN Voice. Got voice. You heard? Programs like this are made possible by Neighborhood Planet Broadcasting Systems, Neighborhood Planet Network, iBlisters Digital Media Creative, and from contributions to NPN TV from viewers